Yeah, so thank you guys for joining me to hear about some of the numbers that we found behind esports and competitive gaming. I am Mike Hines, and to Twitch, our partners at Newzoo, and our own Amazon App Store market research teams, we've been able to put together some pretty interesting data on competitive gaming. But I do want to make sure that I actually set this up properly and talk just a little bit about why I talk about competitive gaming as opposed to just saying esports, because it's important to know whether competitive gaming is actually something that's going to be relevant for you and the games that you're writing. So competitive gaming, first time I heard of competitive gaming, of course, the first thing I thought about was esports. However, competitive gaming really is more than esports. I mean, anytime you play a game against somebody else, you're participating in a competitive game. And I mean, obviously, we as humans are wired for this stuff, right? We're here because competition and competing is part of survival. The point I want to drive here is that our love of competitive activities is core to human nature, and it's developed a whole bunch of really popular games over the centuries. And appealing to this nature should really be intentional and not accidental. Now, it's easy to be accidental about this. I mean, most people don't consider themselves to be competitive gamers, but nevertheless, almost all of us actually compete in competitive games. I mean, think about it, like tic-tac-toe. I mean, that's actually a competitive game, and most of us will play that. And we love playing with friends, with kids when we're bored. It's just easy to do. In addition, games like chess and Go, those are competitive games. And honestly, they haven't thrived for centuries because of, because of clever marketing and UA campaigns, right? There's something intrinsic to that competitiveness that is really attractive to us. So, we dived into that. And so, did you guys know that Amazon owns Twitch now? And since we've owned Twitch, we've noticed just how incredibly popular Twitch is and how incredibly popular it is for people to watch competitive games. And quite frankly, when you can play competitively against people that you like, it's more fun. And more to the point of the data we've gathered, it creates social connections and can build really strong communities. Now, most of the data that we were able to get is on esports. I mean, because certainly that's what we spent a lot of time measuring with Twitch and our partners Newzoo. And so let's take a look at the big boys here. Certainly these are the big franchises in the esports industry. They don't get all the traffic, but they certainly do get a majority of it. And competitive games become esports when the players can compete for prizes, when they can play in front of audiences. For example, World Cup Stadium in South Korea sold out. With actual bottoms and seats watching League of Legends World Championship. They also become esports when they can stream their games for the public. Now, when games are streamed for the public, that more often than not happens on Twitch. And for those of you, maybe there are one or two of you who aren't that familiar with Twitch. Here's a quick overview of what Twitch is. It's a way that a player or broadcaster or streamer, people often use those terms interchangeably, can actually play a game from the left. You can see her there as she plays the game and chats with her audience. And it includes a gameplay window, obviously, where you can see her playing League of Legends, and it includes a viewer chat pane over there on the right-hand side, where the audience can chat with each other and with the streamer. In this particular example of Twitch, on the left-hand side, we also see that she is showing the number of donations that she's received. And if the print is a little bit small on your screen, the biggest donation she's gotten was $300, and she's averaging, she's not averaging, but the total of total donations she's gotten for this session is just about $600, which isn't bad considering that she's got 25 current viewers in this session and about 2,500 total views. So that's she's not doing too bad. The point I want to bring home with this is that sharing what you're doing, sharing the game you're playing, isn't just a way for you to give back to the community if you've got great tips that you want to show people. Isn't just providing entertainment for people who enjoy watching you play or listening to your running dialogue as you play. It's also a decent way for you to earn some extra income because people can vote and show you how happy they are with their pocketbooks and with their donations. Here's another example of a Twitch slide. You'll notice this doesn't look exactly like the last one. There's a fair amount of flexibility that streamers get when they set up their Twitch streams. And the one common thing is you can see the broadcaster in her window there. And you're also seeing the chat window, which is really important because in more traditional sports, when you're watching an American football game or basketball game, you can't really chat with the players. Maybe with the fans around you, sure, but you can't chat with the players. But with esports, you actually can. And think about that for a minute. Think about the increase in loyalty to a streamer and the game that they play when their fans can actually chat with the player about the games that they're playing. It's huge. The games almost always get really nice bumps. Retention goes up. It's a really good way of engaging community in what you're doing. So that's Twitch. Now, who are these people who are actually watching other people play games, and who are the people who are playing these games, and is it something that necessarily has enough volume, has enough data there to really impact you? So this is a neat way of taking a look at that. Normally, I would make you people guess at what these numbers are, but it's kind of hard to do audience participation when I can't ask you to chime in live. But here we go. So, how many million hours do you think it took mankind to build the Great Pyramid of Giza? All right, well, I won't keep you in suspense. It was about 33 million hours to build the Great Pyramid of Giza, according to Wikipedia. Now, the most popular video on YouTube, how many hours did we spend watching the most popular video on YouTube? When I made this slide, it was actually just about 140 million hours. However, that data is old. The new data is 360 million hours for a Latin American music video. Seriously, 360 million hours we've spent watching that YouTube video. It's impressive. But it's not as impressive as actual sports, traditional sports. In the United States, we have a college basketball tournament, and it's called March Madness, and it's where 64 of the best teams in the country all compete in a single elimination bracket to find out who the best college team in the nation is. And last year, we spent 664 million hours watching that tournament. 600. Think how many pyramids we could have built instead of watching college basketball. So that's what sports gives you, even over the most popular YouTube video. But now, how many million hours did we spend watching other people play video games? 4.8 billion hours in 2016. And that's just on Twitch. So when you take a look at the total audience and total audience hours out there waiting to watch and participate in competitive gaming, it's huge. The market is out there. And it's not just, all of the 4 games that are most popular, that 4.8 billion hours has a very long tail for a lot of games and their viewers. Okay, so speaking about their viewers, who are they and where are they? Where has competitive gaming taken off? Well, probably no surprise, it's in the growth markets that most of us probably want our games in already. So out of 191 million people who self-identify as esports enthusiasts in 2017, Asia Pacific will get just over half of them, with Europe, North America, and the rest of the world sharing roughly equally in the other half. But that's not all. It's not just the hardcore enthusiasts, the darker part of each bar on this graph, but it's also casual fans too, people who only identified themselves as occasional esports viewers, not esports enthusiasts. And they make up a significant part of the audience. In 2017, it was the first year that the casual audience was actually bigger than the hardcore audience. And this trend is only going to continue through 2020, according to our friends at Newzoo and the data that they gathered for us. So the fact that we've got casual viewers, not necessarily hardcore viewers, making up a larger, certainly over majority percentage of the people who are watching is a great signal for strong growth for the years ahead. And I'd like to share the data that we got on other indicators that would also indicate strong growth for where esports is going. Now, certainly with the number of enthusiasts and casual viewers that esports is attracting, there isn't much doubt that this is going to grow to be a billion-dollar industry in the coming years. The only question really is, at what pace is this going to occur? So currently we think of competitive gaming and esports in its adolescent phase. And there are a couple of factors that are going to influence the speed of its development and growth. And the factors I want you to pay attention to include creation of new leagues and new ways to monetize, not just monetizing players or monetizing leagues, but ways to get the fan base engaged, or ways to help let the fan base support the teams that they enjoy and support the games that they enjoy watching. Another thing is the rise of new esports titles, particularly ones designed from the outset to be streaming friendly and audience friendly. Towards the end of the presentation, I actually want to spend a little bit of time talking about what that means. What does it mean to design a game that is streaming and audience friendly? Because that's going to turn out to be pretty important. Another good indication that esports are growing quickly is the speed at which media rights are picked up by more traditional media outlets. Team sponsorships and team profitability, the more outside of our industry sponsorships that games and teams get, the better. So certainly when you see hardware manufacturers and Alienware sponsoring teams, that's great. But I mean, I really want to start seeing more household brands, stuff you'd see in the grocery store, picking up sponsorship for teams. That'd be a good sign. And funny enough, but even really banal things like, regulations around this or rules structure around how teams are supposed to play some of these games. It's not exciting. It's kind of a pain sometimes, but it's a really good sign that more money is getting involved. And the more money is getting involved, the more seriously everyone is going to start taking competitive gaming and esports. So keep your eyes out for those things. Now, when we talk about generating money and who's investing, let's take about that. I mean, because certainly the audience isn't trivial and the spend that's going on isn't trivial, but there are specific characteristics of the competitive gaming audience and how they're behaving that does drive entry of some of the investors. And I want to take a look at ESPN as a good example of that. Now, it's a little sad, but ESPN has been losing subscribers at kind of an alarming rate. I mean, they've been losing about 200,000 subscribers per month since 2011. And cable cutters are certainly a part of that, to be sure. But a lot of it is also millennials, people who look for their content on the internet instead of their TV sets. And that's a big reason that ESPN needs to start looking for other avenues to reach some of their core market and prove that they're still relevant in terms of gaming and sports. Now, on the sidebar on the right is a data nugget that we picked up from Newzoo that I really want to point out here. 21% of all customers consume their video content on mobile devices. Esports enthusiasts, however, consume just about half of their content on mobile. So think about competitive gaming for mobile as a way to reach a growing market for whom mobile becomes an increasingly important part of their life. I mean, that's really kind of a hole in the market right now, isn't it? For most of the esports titles that have become franchises, most of them are PC or console based and not mobile at the moment. But given the importance of mobile in our lives, it just seems like a really good opportunity which is open. And certainly some games like Hearthstone, Vainglory are starting to break into that and starting to answer some of that demand out there. Think about how you could use competitive gaming in mobile as kind of being on the leading edge of something really big, competitive gaming, in an increasingly relevant and important market, mobile devices. Anyway, I thought that was pretty important to point out where that hole in the market is. Anyway, moving right along. Is competitive gaming and esports actually working for businesses like ESPN? I mean, are the right audiences tuning in? Well, it turns out that men aged 21 to 35, a pretty desirable demographic, they are tuning in. And esports, it turns out, for a lot of this audience, is actually as popular or more popular than baseball or hockey is. Think about that. When esports in your target audience is actually driving more viewers than some of the traditional sports that you've been backing, it's a good sign, and it's backed up by the fact that traditional sports teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, an American basketball team, are actually starting to invest in esports themselves, because they know if they want to stay relevant with their target audience, the same 21 to 35-year-old males, they need to be where that audience is, and that audience is increasingly in esports. So what about media rights and franchising? Is it just a few players who are already in tech, or is it actually growing to reflect the growth of esports? Well, here's what we've got so far. You can certainly see the list of mainstream broadcast media outlets and sponsors and brands that are starting to pick up esports teams. I love seeing the name brand media, not just ESPN, but also the BBC and Fox and Turner, of course, and TBS. Rumor has it that they're going to be thinking about an actual all esports channel coming up soon. And the mainstream brands. I'm thrilled to see Coca-Cola, Infinity up here, Arby's. Is there room to grow here? I mean, is there room for that high track of growth we saw on an earlier slide? Well, sure, you bet. One of the things I'd like you to take a look at in the upper right of this slide is that if we were as good in the competitive gaming industry, if we were as good at making money per fan as American basketball is, we would be a $3 billion industry. We would have made $3 billion last year. That's about 5 times what we're currently making. And it's not because basketball is all that much more popular than esports. Rather, it's because we are just on the very early end, the very cutting edge of figuring out how our fans are actually going to generate more revenue and be more important to our bottom line than our players are. Think about that for a while. So, Who is actually generating what part of the revenue that we've been talking about? Well, it's basically split between people who have brand investments, media rights, ads, and sponsors. Certainly, they've generated the lion's share, certainly over half of the revenue in the past, and they will continue to generate over half of the revenue moving forward as well. But an increasingly large part of revenues is actually coming out to things like merchandise and ticket sales and payments to game publishers. And this is also growing quickly as well. And that's also really important to see because it helps support the ecosystem. So as these payments continue to increase, where is it increasing? Where is this money actually coming from? Well, probably not surprising. The revenue's being generated largely from the same places where the fans are. And just as Asia Pacific and North America generate a lot of users, they're generating a lion's share of the revenue as well. North America actually generated the most revenue at 41%, while China and South Korea made up 36 and 7% respectively. So it's certainly following where the fans are at the moment. And the fans are actually in the emerging growth markets and in the stronger traditional markets. So it's not bad. I'm particularly pleased to see how South Korea, for example, really is kind of taking a leading role in being fans and generating revenue here, because that means that for those of us who are trying hard to get our games popular in Asia, in Southeast Asia, esports and competitive gaming is now giving us a really attachable way to get our games into that really important, really lucrative market. So what can you do to capitalize on this data? What can I do to capitalize on this data? Recognizing that, competitive gaming is actually a real thing. Esports is on the cutting edge of this, and all of these good numbers from games, most of them are coming from games that have not been specifically designed to work well with audiences or in tournament modes. So think about what things you could do to start. Well, first of all, do you want to do broadcasting or do you want to do game development? There are certainly some other really good presentations from the Twitch team that focus more on being a super effective broadcaster. I want to just toss some ideas out there to help you as a game developer perhaps build the game you're currently working on to be more friendly to streamers and competitions, or maybe to design a game that's designed to really appeal to and work with streamers and competitive gamers. First thing, be part of Twitch. Watch games. See what you do and don't like. Watch streamers. See who's popular, who isn't, and can you tell why? This is important because when you are watching a game and you don't really like it, it's important to see why you don't like it or why you're not really attaching to it. You might want to set up an official channel if you're interested in broadcasting and work to grow your audience. Or if really you just do want to design games, then you need to figure out how you're going to empower your community. People who are picking up your games and streaming your games are going to be super important. I mean, other people giving your game that kind of an endorsement. This is fun enough for me to stream on my Twitch channel. This game rocks. Those people are gold. These people are worth more than any other marketing. These people are probably worth more than any other marketing you could buy. And I want you to turn anyone who streams your game into a rock star. And I mean, think about it. The people who really enjoy streaming, what's important to them? They want to build their audience. They want to get big audiences of really happy fans so that they get large donations. There are thousands of streamers out there who all kind of want to be the next PewDiePie. And if your game can appeal to their audience and help them look like rock stars and help them gather a big audience, then that's going to help them stream your game. So if you can talk to some people, maybe friends of yours who are streamers, get them to stream your game. I would like you to go ahead and promote their streams on all of your social media, on your Twitter account, on your game's Facebook page, and any of the social media that you've set up for your studio. I want you to turn these streamers into rock stars and help them get as many viewers as you can possibly help them get. When other streamers find out that the folks who stream your game are, one, getting more viewers, two, you're supporting their streams and helping turn them into rock stars, they're going to want to call you and see if they can play your game and if they can get mentioned in your social media so that they have a better chance of becoming a rock star. It's really a virtuous cycle. So I encourage you to actually take the people in your community who are streaming and turn them into rock stars. I also want to make it possible for the players of our games to actually set up their own tournaments and set up their own competitive gaming environments. So that's really a big step, is creating games that are fun to compete head to head. And if you can do that, and if that's something that you can design, giving your players the mechanics and a way to actually set up tournaments themselves and set up ways to do this is going to be a really important step in building your game as a competitive game, potentially an esport game. So make it possible for your fans, for your players to talk with each other, meet with each other, create official channels, make it possible for them to set up brackets, make it possible to do player matching. And yes, I get player matching is hard. If you do need help with some things like player matching, you can talk to GameSparks. They've been helping devs with player matching for a long time now. But seriously, take a look at the tools that you can use to empower your player community to play against each other, to play competitively. And when they can start streaming that competitive play, now you're in the realm of becoming an esport and capitalizing on a lot of that market that's out there, which is absolutely huge. So to improve your chances of being really attractive to competitive players and to streamers, developing your game with a streaming first lens is going to be really important. Let me give you an example. I've been talking about American basketball a lot. So imagine that there's a game on television, and you're watching the game on television, and you don't see any of the data that's normally at the bottom of the screen. You just see the players on the court, and there are a bunch of players running around, and this one guy gets the ball, and he's standing, and he's taking a shot at the basket. Okay, big deal. They shoot at baskets all the time in basketball. There doesn't seem to be a lot of other interesting stuff going on, so maybe you change the channel. But let's add that context back to the game, that the score and the time and the other data that you normally see at the bottom of the screen. With that, you see that there's actually less than 1 second left in the game. The score is tied. And it's not just any game. It's actually the final game of March Madness. This is a true story. The two teams a couple of years ago, with less than a second left, were tied at the end of the final game. And the shot that guy took was going to decide the outcome of the game. Now, with that context, watching the next few minutes of the game, next second of the game, becomes really interesting and really important, because now you've got the context that previously only the players had. Now think about that in terms of the games that you're designing. When I'm playing a game, I certainly have the context for where I am and what's going on, and certainly the other players in the game have the same context or slightly different context. But someone who just shows up and starts watching, how can you as a designer make sure that the fans who start watching a stream get the context that lets them know why this moment in this game is important and is interesting and is worth watching? Because without that context, the game's really not going to be that much fun to watch, and it's really not going to be that impressive to stream. So go back to designing some of the UI. One, we get the fact that context is for viewers is really important. Two, where are you going to put that context? Obviously, streamers, as we saw in the earlier Twitch videos, want to put pictures of themselves up. They want to be able to put a chat stream up. They want to be able to put some other information up. And none of that can include important parts of the game. None of that can interfere with important parts of the UI that give people context or show people what's going on. So make sure that you give some space around the margins for streamers to actually put the stuff that's important to them. Or you know, like League of Legends, you make your UI more flexible so that people can move elements around the screen so that they can put the elements that are important to them where they want to, and still put the important game elements somewhere else on the screen. That's super important. Be active with your community. Listen and engage with your community in their streams. Share their content. Listen to their feedback. Let them know that you've read their feedback. Let them know that you're listening. And then, you know, integrate the good suggestions into your product and marketing programs. Last, I want you to make sure, I mean, this isn't on the slide, but it's pretty important. Do what you can to remove toxic players from the stream. Those are people who intentionally try to defeat the purpose or intent of the game. They'll go out and, if applicable, they'll start killing their teammates, or they won't support their teammates, and they'll just be an endless stream of taunts and basically just doing what they can to kind of kill the fun for everyone else. Take a strong stance on this and work diligently to keep those people out of the ecosystem by banning them, and create a healthy, accepting community for your game. It'll certainly help people who are new and are afraid of maybe looking bad, and you want to make sure that they've got a really good place where they can actually start engaging and looking really good. So those are things that I'm certainly going to start doing with the next really bad game that I develop, and hopefully I can see some people participating and actually watching that more. Now, I've given you guys a whole bunch of data here. Again, we'll probably be talking about this again at GDC if you want more details, or if you want to talk to some of us individually at GDC. We also have a book that's out there. You can go to bit.ly Amazon App Store book and download this. It's got a bunch of really good information on how you can get your app or your game into the Amazon App Store. It's actually insanely easy. You just kind of submit the APK you already have. I believe 80% of them just work without additional engineering. But in any case, go ahead, download the PDF of the book. There's a bunch of good stuff there. Now, before I go and dive into the questions that you guys have, I do want to say thank you. And you can certainly keep the conversation going with me if I don't get to your questions. And I want you to be able to see some of the resources that I really like by going to bit.ly MyKind's Dev Tools, particularly if you're interested in promoting your game on the Amazon App Store. There's a doc up there called 8 Tips for Promoting Your Game. And tip number 7 is nice. It actually includes how to maximize your chance of getting featured on the Amazon App Store. So that's a cool thing.